The bathroom door clicked shut, and my heart stopped. I was 17, standing frozen in the steam-filled shower of our cramped San Francisco apartment, when Julian's voice, low, teasing, electrifying, cut through the hiss of water. "You gonna hog all the hot water, Ezra?" In that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same. My name's Ezra Nguyen, a Vietnamese-American kid with a knack for sketching and a secret I'd buried deeper than the roots of the redwoods. Growing up in the Mission District, where murals bled color onto every wall, I'd always felt like an outsider in my own skin. Mom, a single parent who worked double shifts at the hospital, was away for the weekend, leaving me and Julian, my stepbrother, alone in our tiny apartment. Julian Carter, 19, black, with a grin that could disarm a bomb and a skateboarder's swagger, had moved in 2 years ago when our parents got married. He was everything I wasn't: bold, unapologetic, magnetic. And I was terrified of how much I noticed him. That Saturday morning, I'd been sketching in my room, trying to capture the curve of a wave-eyed scene at Ocean Beach, when Julian barged in, shirtless, towel slung over his shoulder. "Shower's mine after you," he said, his eyes glinting with that infuriating confidence. I mumbled something and bolted to the bathroom, hoping the hot water would wash away the heat creeping up my neck. But then he was there, leaning against the doorframe, his voice pulling me into a moment I wasn't ready for. "Mind if I join?" he said, half joking, but his eyes held something serious, something that made my pulse race. I laughed it off, splashing water to hide my panic. "Dude, get out." But Julian didn't move. He stepped closer, the steam curling around him like a dream. "Ezra," he said, softer now, "you don't have to hide from me." And then, in a moment that felt like the world splitting open, he reached out, his fingers brushing my wrist under the water. It wasn't just a touch. It was a question, a confession, a spark that set my whole body ablaze. I yanked my hand back, heart hammering. "What are you doing?" My voice cracked, betraying me. Julian's face softened, but he didn't back away. "I see you, Ezra. I've always seen you." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I wanted to run, to scream, to dive into the truth he was offering, but fear clamped down like a vice. I'd spent years convincing myself I could ignore the way my heart stuttered when he laughed, the way I memorized the curve of his jaw when he wasn't looking. But now, in the shower's haze, there was no escaping it. I shoved past him, grabbing a towel and fleeing to my room. My sketchbook lay open on the bed, a half-finished drawing of Julian's eyes staring back at me. I slammed it shut, my hands shaking. What had just happened? Had I imagined the weight of his touch, the way his voice seemed to unravel me? And why did it feel like the secret I'd kept locked away was now clawing its way out? The rest of the day, I avoided him. I locked myself in my room, blasting music through my headphones, but I couldn't drown out the memory of his fingers on my skin. By evening, Julian knocked on my door. "Ezra, we need to talk." His voice was steady, but there was an edge to it, like he was bracing for a fight. I opened the door, my mouth dry. He stood there, wearing a faded hoodie, his eyes searching mine. "I'm not sorry," he said, stepping inside. "I meant it. All of it." I wanted to tell him to stop, to leave me alone, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I whispered, "This can't happen. You're my stepbrother." The word felt like a wall between us, but Julian didn't flinch. "That's just a label, Ezra. It doesn't change how I feel." He took a step closer, and I could smell the faint cedar of his cologne. "Tell me you don't feel it too." I did. God, I did. But admitting it felt like stepping off a cliff. I shook my head, backing away. "You don't get it. If Mom finds out, if anyone finds out," my voice broke. In our neighborhood, acceptance wasn't guaranteed. I'd seen the way some kids at school whispered about Jamie, the non-binary kid who got jumped last year. I'd heard the slurs tossed around like grenades. And Mom, with her traditional values, would never understand. Julian's jaw tightened. I'm not asking you to shout it from the rooftops. I'm asking you to be honest with yourself. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away again, my chest tight. I can't, I said, and the words felt like a betrayal, to him, to myself. He nodded, his face unreadable, and left without another word. That night, I couldn't sleep. The apartment was too quiet, the walls too thin. I kept replaying the shower, the way his touch had felt like a key unlocking something I tried to bury. By morning, I was a mess, my sketchbook filled with frantic lines that couldn't capture the chaos in my head. I needed air, so I grabbed my board and headed to Dolores Park, hoping the city's pulse would drown out my own. The park was alive with color, street vendors hawking tacos, kids chasing dogs, couples sprawled on blankets. I sat on a bench, sketching the skyline, when Julian appeared, his skateboard tucked under his arm. "You can't keep running," he said, sitting beside me. His voice was gentle but firm, like he'd made up his mind about something. "I'm not gonna let you." I stared at my sketch, the pencil trembling in my hand. "What do you want from me, Julian?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He leaned closer, his shoulder brushing mine. "I want you to stop being afraid of who you are. Of us." His words hit like a tidal wave, washing away the walls I'd built. For the first time, I let myself look at him, really look, and saw the vulnerability behind his confidence, the hope in his eyes. We sat there, the city humming around us, and I felt something shift. Maybe it was the way the sunlight caught his face, or the way his words echoed my own buried truth. I didn't have answers, but for the first time, I wanted to find them. With him. The days after that moment in Dolores Park were a blur of tension and unspoken words. Julian didn't push, but his presence was a constant reminder of the line we'd crossed in the shower. I'd catch him watching me, while I sketched at the kitchen table, or when we passed each other in the hallway, his dark eyes holding a quiet intensity that made my stomach twist. I wanted to talk, to figure out what us even meant, but fear kept me silent. What if this was a mistake? What if it broke our family apart? School didn't help. Galileo High was a pressure cooker of cliques and rumors, and I was already the quiet art kid who didn't fit in. My best friend, Lila, a sharp-tongued Latino with a nose ring and a talent for poetry, noticed something was off. "You look like you're hiding a body, Ezra," she said one day at lunch, her eyes narrowing over her bento box. I forced a laugh, but my mind was on Julian, on the way his laugh filled the apartment, on the way I couldn't stop drawing him in my sketchbook. "Just stressed," I mumbled, but Lila wasn't buying it. She leaned in, her voice low. "If you're in trouble, you tell me, okay? No judgment." I wanted to tell her. I wanted to spill everything, about the shower, about Julian's confession, about the way my heart raced when I thought of him. But the words stuck in my throat. Lila was open-minded, but this was different. Julian was family, technically, and in a city as progressive as San Francisco, I still felt the weight of judgment, the fear of being seen as wrong. That night, Mom came home from her shift, exhausted but smiling. She ruffled my hair and asked about school, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. Julian was in the living room, playing a video game, his focus intense. I watched him from the kitchen, my hands gripping the counter. How could he act so normal when everything felt so fragile? When Mom went to bed, Julian caught my eye and nodded toward the balcony. My heart thudded, but I followed. The city sparkled below, a tapestry of lights stretching toward the bay. Julian leaned against the railing, his hoodie pulled tight against the chill. "You're avoiding me," he said, not looking at me. I swallowed, my throat dry. "I'm not. I just don't know what to do." He turned, his eyes locking onto mine. "You don't have to do anything, Ezra. Just stop pretending you don't feel it." I wanted to argue, to tell him it wasn't that simple, but the truth was clawing at me. I took a shaky breath. What if we ruin everything? Mom, Dad, this family. Julian cut me off, his voice sharp. This isn't about them. It's about you. About us. He stepped closer, his hand hovering near mine. I'm not asking for forever. I'm asking for now. The air between us crackled, and for a moment, I let myself imagine it, kissing him, right there under the stars, letting go of the fear. But then I heard Mom's voice in my head, her stories of tradition, of what family meant. I stepped back, shaking my head. I need time, Julian. His face fell, but he nodded. I'll wait, he said, and the weight of those words stayed with me long after he went inside. The next week was torture. Julian gave me space, but every glance, every brush of his shoulder in the hallway, felt like a spark. I threw myself into my art, filling my sketchbook with images of crashing waves, broken bridges, anything to distract from the pull I felt toward him. Lila noticed my distraction and dragged me to a poetry slam in the Castro, hoping to cheer me up. The room was packed, the air thick with cigarette smoke and passion. A trans poet named Riley took the stage, their words cutting through the noise. Love isn't a sin, it's a revolution. The crowd roared, and I felt tears prick my eyes. Was that what this was? A revolution? Or a disaster waiting to happen? After the slam, Lila cornered me. Okay, Spill. You've been a ghost all week. I hesitated, then blurted it out. I think I'm in love with Julian. Her eyes widened, but she didn't flinch. Your stepbrother? She asked, not judging, just clarifying. I nodded, my face burning. She whistled low. That's complicated. But if it's real, Ezra, you can't run from it forever. Her words echoed Julian's, and they followed me home. When I got there, Julian was on the couch, sketching something in a notebook. He looked up, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Ezra, he said, setting the notebook down. I need to tell you something. My stomach dropped. He stood, his voice low. I'm leaving for college in a month. Berkeley. I didn't want to tell you until I was sure. The news hit like a punch. Berkeley was close, but it felt like a chasm. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, my voice shaking. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Because I didn't want to scare you off. I thought maybe if we figured this out, you'd come with me. Not literally, but you know what I mean. I didn't know what to say. The idea of him leaving, of losing this fragile thing between us, was unbearable. But the fear was still there, a shadow I couldn't shake. I don't know if I can do this, I admitted, my voice barely audible. Julian's face softened, and he stepped closer, his hand brushing mine. You don't have to decide tonight. Just think about it. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The city hummed outside, a reminder that life kept moving, whether I was ready or not. I thought of Riley's poem, of Lila's words, of Julian's touch in the shower. And for the first time, I let myself imagine a world where I wasn't afraid, where I could love him, openly, without shame. It felt like a dream, but it was a dream I wanted to chase. The weeks before Julian's move to Berkeley were a tightrope walk. Every moment with him felt charged, like we were stealing time from a world that might not let us have it. I stopped avoiding him, letting myself linger in his presence, helping him pack, sharing late-night snacks, laughing over dumb TikToks. But the unspoken question hung between us. What were we doing? Were we brothers, friends, or something more? One evening, we ended up at Ocean Beach, the same place I'd been sketching when this all started. The waves roared, and the sky was a bruise of purple and gold. Julian kicked off his shoes, letting the sand bury his toes. You ever think about running away? He asked, his voice almost lost in the wind. I laughed, nervous. Where to? He shrugged, his eyes on the horizon. Somewhere we can just be us. No labels, no rules. His words painted a picture I wanted to step into, but reality kept pulling me back. Mom had started noticing my distraction, asking if I was okay. I lied, saying it was school stress, but her eyes lingered, like she could sense something deeper. I wondered if she'd ever accept me. Us, if she knew. The thought made my chest ache. At school, things got worse. A rumor started circling, sparked by a kid who'd seen me and Julian at the park. Too close, too quiet. Whispers followed me in the halls. Ezra's got a thing for his brother. I ignored them, but the words stung, each one a reminder of the world's judgment. Lila was my shield, shutting down anyone who dared say it to my face. But even she couldn't stop the unease growing inside me. One night, Julian suggested we sneak out to a queer club in the Castro, a place called Neon Pulse. Just to see, he said, his grin daring me to say yes. I hesitated, but the pull of him was stronger than my fear. The club was a riot of color and sound, bodies moving under flashing lights. Julian grabbed my hand, pulling me onto the dance floor. For the first time, I felt free, like the world outside didn't exist. We danced, our bodies close, his laugh vibrating through me. When the music slowed, he pulled me closer, his lips brushing my ear. "This is what it could be like," he whispered. I wanted to kiss him, right there in the crowd, but fear stopped me. What if someone from school was here? What if word got back to Mom? I pulled away, my heart pounding. Julian's face fell, but he didn't push. "Let's get some air," he said, leading me outside. The night was cool, the street alive with laughter and music. We sat on a curb, sharing a soda, and he looked at me, serious. "Ezra, I'm not going to force you, but I'm not going to pretend I don't love you." The word, love, hit like a lightning bolt. I stared at him, my throat tight. "You can't just say that," I whispered. He smiled, sad and certain. "I can, because it's true." Before I could respond, a group of drunk guys stumbled by, one of them slurring something ugly about fags. Julian tensed, but I grabbed his arm, pulling him away. The moment was gone, replaced by the cold reality of the world we lived in. Back home, I couldn't shake the word, love. It was everything I wanted and everything I feared. The next day, I found Julian's notebook on the couch, open to a page of poetry. His handwriting was messy, but the words were raw, beautiful. "You're the tide I can't outrun, the shore I crash into." I closed it, my heart racing. He was leaving in a week, and I was running out of time to decide. That night, Mom called a family meeting. My stomach churned as we sat at the kitchen table, her face serious. "I've been offered a job in Seattle," she said. "Better pay, better hours. I think we should take it." The words were a gut punch. Seattle meant leaving San Francisco, leaving Julian. I glanced at him, but his face was blank, unreadable. "What about Berkeley?" I asked, my voice shaking. Mom frowned. "Julian's going to college. He'll be fine. This is about our future, Ezra." After she went to bed, I found Julian on the balcony, staring at the city. "You didn't tell her," I said, my voice accusing. He sighed. "I didn't know how. She's so excited about this job." I wanted to scream, to tell him we couldn't let this happen, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I said, "I don't want you to go." It was the closest I'd come to admitting the truth. Julian turned, his eyes soft. "Then give me a reason to stay." He stepped closer, his hand brushing my cheek. This time, I didn't pull away. I leaned in, and when our lips met, it was like the world fell away. The kiss was soft, tentative, then fierce, like we were making up for lost time. When we pulled apart, I was trembling, but I felt alive, whole, for the first time. "I love you too," I whispered, the words freeing and terrifying. Julian smiled, but there was pain in his eyes. "We'll figure it out," he said, but we both knew it wouldn't be easy. Seattle loomed like a storm, and I wasn't sure we could outrun it. The kiss changed everything. It was a promise, a rebellion, a line we couldn't uncross. But with Mom's Seattle plans and Julian's move to Berkeley, time was slipping through our fingers. We stole moments where we could, late-night talks on the balcony, quiet walks through the Mission, our hands brushing in secret. Each touch was a defiance of the world, but the weight of reality grew heavier every day. At school, the rumors got worse. Someone had seen us at Neon Pulse, and now the whispers were louder, uglier. Lila did her best to shut them down, but I could feel the eyes on me, judging, dissecting. One day, a jock named Tyler cornered me in the locker room, his voice dripping with venom. "You and your brother are disgusting," he spat. I froze, my fists clenched, but Julian appeared, his presence like a shield. "Back off," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Tyler sneered but walked away, leaving me shaking with rage and shame. That night, I told Julian we had to be careful. If Mom finds out, if anyone else. He cut me off, his hands cupping my face. "I don't care who knows, Ezra. I'm not ashamed of you." His words were a lifeline, but they also terrified me. I wasn't as brave as him. I wasn't ready to face the world. The next day, Mom dropped another bomb. We were moving in 2 weeks. She'd already found an apartment in Seattle, a small place near her new hospital job. I felt like I was drowning. Julian and I sat on the roof of our building, the city sprawling below us, and I finally broke. "I can't lose you," I said, tears streaming down my face. He pulled me into his arms, his voice steady. "You won't. We'll find a way." But how? Berkeley was close, but Seattle was a world away. Long distance felt impossible, especially with the secret we were keeping. I thought about telling Mom, but every time I tried, the words died in my throat. She was so proud of her new job, so hopeful for a fresh start. How could I shatter that? Lila was the one who pushed me. We were at a cafe, her poetry notebook open between us, when she said, "You're gonna regret it if you don't tell her. You deserve to be happy, Ezra." Her words stayed with me, and that night, I made a decision. I found Mom in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, and I took a deep breath. "Mom, I need to tell you something." She looked up, her smile fading as she saw my face. "What's wrong, honey?" I swallowed, my heart pounding. "I'm gay, and I'm in love with Julian." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Mom's knife stopped mid-chop, her face unreadable. For a moment, I thought she'd yell, or cry, or throw me out. But then she set the knife down and pulled me into a hug. "Oh, Ezra," she whispered. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I broke down, sobbing into her shoulder. She didn't understand everything, not yet, but she listened as I told her about Julian, about the shower, about the fear and the love that had been tearing me apart. She was quiet for a long time, then said, "I don't know what this means for us, but I love you, and I'll figure it out." The next day, I told Julian. His face lit up, and he kissed me, right there in the living room, not caring who might see. But the relief was short-lived. Mom sat us down that night, her voice gentle but firm. "I can't pretend this is easy," she said. "You're brothers, in a way. But I see how much you care for each other. I just need time." She didn't cancel the Seattle move, but she promised to help us stay connected. The day we left for Seattle was the hardest of my life. Julian drove us to the airport, his hand gripping mine the whole way. At the gate, he pulled me into a hug, his voice breaking. "This isn't goodbye, Ezra. It's just see you later." I nodded, tears blurring my vision, and boarded the plane. In Seattle, I threw myself into my art, sending Julian sketches and letters, calling him every night. He visited when he could, and each time, it was like no time had passed. Mom started going to PFLAG meetings, learning to understand, to accept. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. A year later, I got into an art program at Berkeley. When I told Julian, he laughed, his voice warm through the phone. "Told you we'd figure it out." I moved back to California, and we found a tiny apartment near campus, a place that was ours. The world wasn't always kind. There were still stares, whispers, moments of doubt, but we faced it together. Looking back, that moment in the shower was the spark that changed everything. It forced me to confront my fear, to choose love over shame. Julian and I weren't just a secret anymore. We were a revolution, a testament to the power of being true to yourself. And as I sat in our apartment, sketching his face under the soft glow of a lamp, I knew I'd made the right choice. Love wasn't easy, but it was worth it.